Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Inaam Tahhan. Today, my show is going to be all about Syria. But before I start the subject, I would like to share this wonderful song with you that reminds me of my beautiful country, Syria. So let's hear it together.
كرامتي أعدت لي هويتي بالحرب والكفاح وشعلة الشراع تنير درب ثورتي يا حبيبتي
قنالنا جولاننا سماؤنا وأرضنا تفديهم دماؤنا أبطالنا وبعضنا يسير لمجده الكبير مبشرا بعودتي ورافعا كرامتي مجددا هويتي بالحرب والكفاح وشعلة الجراح تنير درب ثورتي يا حبيبتي.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. To continue our subject about Syria and the conflict in Syria that has been taking place for almost 4 years, we can see there is a lot of meeting in United Nations regarding these issues that's happening and still happening. More than 500 letters that Mr. Bashar al-Jafari, the Syrian ambassador to United Nations, submitted 500 letters stating all the crimes that's happening against our Syrian people inside Syria. These letters did not grab the attention of the people who works in United Nations. Even though he submitted these letters, everybody closed their ears. They don't want to hear about it. They think the Syrian president, Mr. Bashar al-Assad, is a dictator, as what they call him. So they have the right to remove him. While 80% of the Syrian people choose him to be the president of Syria. Remember, during the election, they closed every Syrian embassy around the world. So they prevent the Syrian people from voting. And this is something never happened before to any of the countries around the world. It happens only to the Syrian. The Syrian people, they went to Lebanon, which is the only Syrian embassy that was open for them to vote. And what they did is they don't want to use the ink to stamp the card. They cut their skin. They took a blood. They stamped that card with their own blood. They said, this is the president that we want, and this is our president. 12 people from United States went to Syria to monitor this election, and they came back to United Nations, and they have a press conference to tell everybody what happened. Within 5 minutes, when they start talking, the broadcasts were cut off because this wasn't an accident. It's just they don't want the situation in Syria to be revealed. They want everything to be covered. They don't want the truth on the surface. Syrian people are fighting against those who are coming to kill our people there. 83 nationalities been fighting in Syria under the name of rebels. Let's talk about Aleppo. Aleppo, it's full of factories. They steal all these factories and move to Turkey. And remember, why terrorists wants to hit the Twin Towers on 9/11? Why terrorists, they pointed on the 2 Twin Towers on 9/11? Because that's where the economy is. And that's where the business is. By hitting the city of Aleppo, it's a city where thousands of factories. It's the heart of the business in Middle East area. And that's what they want to destroy. Remember those rebels, they teamed with Qatar, who support, of course, terrorism everywhere. They teamed with Saudi Arabia, which funded those terrorists. They team with Turkey, who give those terrorists a base on their soil so they can fight, create their meetings in that area. Who are the rebels? The rebels are from Shishan, the rebels from Pakistan, rebels from Bangladesh, rebels from France, from Canada, from Australia. Are these the Syrian rebels? Please tell me, is this the Syrian rebels? Plus, why they have to target schools? Why they have to hit our soldiers with chemical weapon? Remember, they practiced the chemical on rabbits in Ankara in Turkey. So everything was well set up. Everything was well set up by this terrorist worldwide organization. Starting from to weapons, to chemical weapons. Who funded these criminals? Where they get their weapons from? I've been monitoring this. I find out a lot of meetings happening between Senator McCain, Ford, and Senator Hillary Clinton and John Kerry. They meet with the Nusra, and the Nusra is part of Al-Qaeda. Unbelievable what's going on here. Mr. Obama was writing a check of $5 billion from your tax and my tax to support what he called them moderate rebels. Moderate rebels who goes to those small villages and rape women and kill children. People lost their homes. They've been manipulated under the name of democracy. Those people, they've been moved to camps. They have fence around those camps. Where did they build those camps for the Syrian refugees? They build them in muddy areas. They build them in flooding areas, in a place where they have sandstorm areas. These people who are in the camps, they cannot leave. There is a fence around those camps. Their women, their children, their young girls been sold. It's ridiculous what's happening to our Syrian people. Their body parts been sold in Turkish hospitals. Anyone who's injured, they go to that hospital, never come back. Never come back. You can see online, YouTube's thousands of crimes against our Syrian people. I am saying this because I personally experienced this awful pain that the Syrian people are living right this moment. My father was shot and killed by a sniper. The sniper went inside his house and shot him. Everyone I know in the city of Aleppo, the north of Syria, most of them were killed by snipers, or their home been destroyed, or they lost loved one. Tragedy day after day. But I cannot explain the pain of those who lost their children during school time. I remember the tragedy of Sandy Hook's school in Connecticut. Sandy Hook tragedy, it's happening in Syria every day. The Syrian people never lost hope. They believe tomorrow will be better. They believe that this cloud will go away from their sky. Mr. Bashar al-Assad, the president of the Syrian Republic, received a letter from Senator Richard Black thanking him for supporting minorities, especially after the kidnapping of the 11 nuns from Malula, which is the oldest city in Syria. Those people who speak the Aramaic language, and terrorists reached that area and kidnapped all the nuns with the children. Senator Black, he sent a letter to Mr. Bashar al-Assad to thank him for supporting minorities and supporting his people. He believed in his people, and his people believe in him. He is the only one that is going to bring Syria back to the shore. Coming right up, we will have an interview with the Senator of Virginia, Mr. Richard Black. On the phone, he is going to give us his input on this matter. Senator Black, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine.
I would like to welcome you to our show. We understand as a Syrian people that many people were against the Syrian and they believe in the rebels. thinking that Bashar is al-Assad is dictator, and they totally believe that they supposed to remove him. And especially in the United States, John McCain and Kerry and Hillary Clinton, all the senators, they've been supporting the rebels fully. Now, the Syrian people, they felt like they lost hope, especially when they hear that Mr. Obama, he was going to write a check to support the rebels. And all of a sudden, we see the rainbow after the rain. The rainbow was your letter.
I'm very pleased that the letter received the attention it did. Politically, it was very interesting because the news media throughout the world had coordinated against Syria. You know, I thanked the Syrian Arab Army for their gallantry in the great victory on the Kalaman mountain range, where they liberated many of the villages that included many of the Christians, and I thanked them for that. And the other thing is, I told President Assad that I could not explain to him why we had come out in favor of the terrorists, who are the same people who in the United States on 9/11 and killed 3,000 Americans in the Twin Towers and the Pentagon. And now we've gone full circle, and we are arming and training and encouraging those same terrorists to attack the people of Syria.
Of course.
And I don't believe that we should be helping Al-Qaeda and these other organizations that were spawned off from Al-Qaeda, like ISIS and Al-Nusra and the Islamic Front.
Yes.
And so it had a very powerful effect around the world. And what it did is the people who were interested in Middle Eastern affairs began to question, and I think that questioning has continued, and I think it slowly accelerates day by day. So I think that's a positive thing.
That's, that was very well known. And you have mentioned also that President Assad has been fighting ISIS and other radical terrorists for years, and he never threatened the United States, and for generations has protected the minorities all over Syria, as his father did before him. What would you like to say about that?
Yes, my letter also did thank him for the position that the Assads, both President Bashar al-Assad and his father, throughout their tenure, they have always protected the religious minorities. Now, that doesn't mean they don't protect the rest of the
exactly.
people,
Yes.
but they protect everyone.
Exactly.
And within the Arab world, there probably is no nation with greater freedom of religion than Syria. In fact, I suspect from watching and from reports that I've gotten back, there may be greater freedom of religion in Syria than there is in the United States. During the midst of the war, there was a great statue of Jesus Christ that was erected on a high mountain overlooking Lebanon, Israel, and Syria. It's a beautiful bronze structure, and that was done freely.
Yes.
If you want to build a mosque, you build a mosque. You don't encounter government interference. If you want to build a church, the same thing.
Yes.
And I think Syria is an example of what we would hope that would eventually prevail throughout the Middle East.
Yes.
Now, I read an older article back about a week ago, and it talked about the early days of the war, where so many nations had demanded that President Assad step down, and their argument, I forget whether this might have been in the New York Times, but anyway, their argument was that he had not liberalized the rules in Syria sufficiently. And I had to chuckle because one of the groups demanding that he step down for this reason was Saudi Arabia.
Yes.
Now, in Saudi Arabia, there is no freedom of religion whatsoever. There's
Thank
not this
you.
religion.
That's correct.
And another thing is that women in Syria enjoy complete freedom.
That's true.
They can go where they want. They don't have to ask the permission of a male member of the family. They can travel. They can be educated. They can work in various occupations, and they are as free, more free than in any other Arab nation in the Middle East.
That's correct.
And of course, in Saudi Arabia, women are treated as possessions rather than as individual human beings. They're told what to wear. They're not even allowed to drive a car. They're treated barbarically.
That's what
So
they're
the
trying to
idea-
do in Syria. They're trying to control Syria for that purpose.
Yes, they want. If they had prevailed in Syria, then two major things that would happen is that women's freedom would disappear.
Exactly.
All women would be treated. Some of them would be enslaved. ISIS has organized regulated slave markets in areas that they have captured, where women are sold along with cattle. They sell cattle in the same markets as they sell women.
Yes.
And beyond that, not only women, but they sell little girls. And there is nothing more revolting than the idea that you would sell little 5-year-old girls to some depraved jihadist, some filthy, dirty man who would take that child and rape her to death.
Exactly.
And there's nothing so angering to me as to know that this is the face of the Islamic State. ISIS is the most horrible thing that has happened in my entire lifetime. And they're not that much different than al-Nusra and the Islamic Front. They all are just vile, depraved people who want to destroy the rights of all of the people in Syria. They want women to be possessions. They want to destroy freedom of religion. And in fact, this is really how the uprising began. People have forgotten because of all of the propaganda, but I spoke with a priest who told me that in the city of Hama that they organized, the various intelligence agencies organized the most radical jihadists there, and they marked the homes of all of the Christians with the Nazarene symbol.
Correct.
And then on signal, and also now the Syrian UN ambassador told me personally, he confirmed that they had people on the street corners there with signs that had what is a very catchy phrase in Arabic, but in English it says, "Christians to Beirut, Alawites to the grave."
Correct.
And he spoke that to me in Syrian or in Arabic rather, and it's a very catchy kind of a political phrase, and of course it's a very murderous thing. And what is interesting is that Ambassador Ford is a very sinister individual, and he worked together with these with these rebels in a covert way. And he reported that they were wonderful people who wanted democracy and freedom and a more liberalized society. And he misled the American people deliberately.
Yes.
And what was actually happening was almost identical to what the Nazis did to the Jews in Germany on Kristallnacht, which was a very famous day where all of the Jewish shops were marked with the gold star, and then on order the Nazi brown shirts rampaged through the cities and beat and terrorized people. Now the same thing, no more virtuous, is what happened in Hama. Yes. And within 3 days, there were 70,000 Christians who poured into Damascus. Now, why did they go to Damascus? Because they trusted President Assad.
That's correct.
They knew that President Assad would defend them.
That is very true, Senator. Syrian people believe the only person who is going to protect them from those monsters is the President Bashar al-Assad. And how they going to believe in those rebels who teamed with Turkey, who ruled the Arab world for 400 years. Syrian people will never believe in those groups. Before we continue, we would like to take a small break. You are listening to OWWR, Old Westbury Web Radio, ladies and gentlemen. And this is Inaam Tahhan from Old Westbury, New York. We'll be back. Stay tuned.
A boy born in Joplin, Missouri was fascinated by anything with wheels and a motor. The odds of him going on to fascinate millions with his talent, 1 in 260,000. The odds of him having 15 career NASCAR victories, 1 in 1.7 million. The odds of a child being diagnosed with autism, 1 in 68. I'm Jamie McMurray, and my niece has autism. Learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Brought to you by Autism Speaks and the Ad Council.
Yes, sir. You already know what time it is, man. Club to the DJ Gully here, letting you know that the Grind Time Mix is back each and every Wednesday from 12 to 2. If you never listened to the show before, I should tell you this one thing right here. It's a straight party over the airwaves, you know what I'm saying? Each and every Wednesday, I lock in 2 hours straight, give me nothing but them straight party waves. You know, certain genres like hip-hop, pop, R&B, a little dancehall, Latin, of course, that top 40, and anything else you could think of. So tune in each and every Wednesday right here on OWWR, Old Westbury Web Radio. Your digs.
Author Busha Raymond will explore her Pakistani-American community in Queens, feminism, and writing. Students and faculty from all departments will explore the questions of gender, sexuality, race, class, immigration experiences, and inequalities that shape the American experience. Join the conversation on Wednesday, March 4th from 12 to 3 p.m. in the new academic building, room 1100. For more information, call 516-628-5024. That's 516-628-5024.
Getting your sports news from OWWR, Old Westbury Web Radio, is like hitting an eagle on a par 4. It doesn't get much better than that.
It's in the hole!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to OWWR, Old Westbury Web Radio, and this is Inaam Tahhan. We have our Senator, Mr. Richard Black from Virginia. We were discussing the issues in the refugee camps by the border of Turkey and Jordan. I was telling you, Senator, about the families in those camps, the Syrian families who've been suffering, and there is no way of saving them because fence been surrounding those camps. And girls been raped inside those camps and been sold. What do you would like to say about this?
Well, it is one of the great tragedies of our time.
Yes,
what has been done and the injustice of it.
True.
Because I must tell you that there are many people who take great inspiration in watching the courage of the Syrian people, and I'm one of them. I know that things don't always go well in every battle and every place, but I see the Syrian army just fighting with such incredible gallantry and skill, and I see the Syrian people remaining united despite all of the forces that have come against them.
That's true.
And the United States, unfortunately, of course, I'm in the Senate in Virginia, and I have a very extensive military background, of which I'm very proud. But I am not proud of the undercover work that we have done that has undermined Syria. I think we played a role, and I'm not sure how active it was, but I know that when the gas attacks occurred in Ghouta,
Yes.
that there was a tremendous propaganda effort, and in the end, the claims that somehow Syria had used gas on its own people were completely debunked. There was no credibility whatsoever to it, and there was a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Seymour Hersh, who wrote extensively about it, and he concluded that it was Turkish intelligence agents working with rebels, probably al-Nusra, and that was confirmed also by an even more extensive investigative article by I believe it was Mr. Bodansky, and anyway,
they use this chemical weapon. They practice it on rabbits, and there is a proof that this chemical, before they use it on the Syrian people, they use it on rabbits on the border of Turkey.
Yes. Well, I do recall there was a report perhaps 6 months before the Ghouta attack where along the Turkish border, Turkish authorities captured a group of about a dozen al-Nusra rebels, and they were carrying 2.2 kilograms of sarin gas.
Yes.
And they were sent to court, and then the word came down from on high to wash the case out, and so they were released. Of course, Turkey is very much allied with the Islamic State and with al-Nusra, and I think they were the key to providing the poison gas that was used in
our
the suburb of Damascus.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And it's not only that. Many times, like the United Nations, they receive more than 500 reports from Mr. Bashar al-Jafari, the ambassador to Syrian mission to United Nations.
Yes.
They didn't even bother to take action against what's going on. This is the conflict been going on for almost 4 years, and until today, every time we feel like there is a solution and there is a hope out there, we'll see like new changes happen, and it's like they want this conflict to go on and on and on. It's like they don't want it to stop. It's confusing of how Kerry and McCain, they want to still support the rebels and have camps to train them. And then, I'm a Syrian lady, and I feel like every time we feel like we reach the shore, we see like some changes is against us.
It is very confusing. I guess I would tell you that there is also hope, because there is a gradual shift of opinion against the rebels that are attacking Syria, and we will have to see when the new Congress takes over. Now, of course, you have John McCain. He is an incredibly bellicose man. Not a man, in my view, to be trusted.
Yes.
And of course, John Kerry is. I recall when I was serving in Vietnam, John Kerry went over there and he spent 4 months in Vietnam and then came back, and he called all of us war criminals, and we were not. We were we were fighting very hard, much as Syria is today. But the man is a liar. John Kerry has, since the time he was a young man, his life has been built on fabrications and lies, and so we will have to see. I wish that I could tell you that there was clarity, but from where I sit, I see the Syrian army, although it's not winning every battle. I see it winning the big battles, and I see it moving forward very effectively, and at the same time, I see hope politically. There's a very interesting alliance between the very conservative Republicans and the very liberal Democrats, and the liberal Democrats are against war generally, and the very conservative Republicans are very skeptical of what is happening in Syria, and very skeptical of arming terrorists, because eventually these terrorists, no matter what happens in Syria, the terrorists are going back to their home countries, and they're going to kill people in their home countries.
That's correct. That's correct. And we're not, as a Syrian people, from my point of view, I do not trust those people who support the terrorists to take the country over to be our president. We will never give them our land. We will never let them reach that stage. From my point of view, how am I going to trust someone who hired criminals to come and kill all our innocent people and rape our girls to be one of the Syrian president? That's impossible.
No, and here's something that's very interesting. This war, as you mentioned, has been going on for about 4 years. And for 4 years, some of the Western powers and some of the Arab powers and Turkey have been arming terrorists. They have been paying their armies, hiring their armies. They have mercenaries from all around the world converging on Syria.
Sure.
Now, their objective was to create a puppet government that they could install that would run Syria in whatever way they chose. And you would think that after 4 years that you would know the name of some person who had captured the imagination of the Syrian people and who enjoyed the support of the Syrian people. But, I read reports from all over the world, from, Western sources, Chinese, Russian, all over. Yes. And when you read them, the only jihadist who has any real prominence is al-Baghdadi.
Yes.
And, of course, he is the most hideous of all of the terrorists and the most threatening to the entire world. Even Saudi Arabia, which has been, they have funded much of the killing that's taken place. Even they are becoming apprehensive of al-Baghdadi, yes, because they know that someone who is so bloodthirsty is likely to take the Saudi royal family and put their heads on pikes. And so now they've gotten leery of it. And so here it is, 4 years later, everyone knows about President Bashar al-Assad. He's stood for election, and even though it's very difficult to run an election during wartime, it was a fair election. He had opposition. The other people who ran for the presidency were well known. They were respected, prominent people in
And
Syria.
educated,
Yes,
highly
and
educated, correct.
yes, and very very admirable people. And if the Syrian people wanted to vote against President his opponents and said, okay, everybody vote for this person because we're so against President Assad, but they didn't because they're disconnected from Syria, and so you had 79% of the Syrian people voting in favor of President Assad, and I'm sorry, 89%.
89%, yes.
89%, and you had 73% turnout for the election.
Yes.
Now that's an enormous turnout, and in the United States and in a number of Western countries, they refused to allow voting because they were afraid if they had voting by Syrian expatriates, that the Syrians would vote for President al-Assad, and that would be a very awkward situation.
Yes.
And so they shut down the voting in the United States and in a number of other countries. But Lebanon, I think, was the most informative situation where
People marched.
There were masses of people,
Correct.
enormous masses of people who mobbed the polling places. They had to double up on police just to maintain control. People stood for 15 hours in the sun so that they could vote for President al-Assad.
With their blood, Senator, with their blood. They cut their skin, and my sister was one of them. She cut her skin. She said, I'm not going to use the ink. I'm going to use my blood because I love him so much. And she stamped the paper with her blood. She said, it's not only me, it's everybody.
It is amazing the strength of the Syrian people and how they have held together.
Yes.
Despite all of the forces of evil that have been brought against them.
Yes.
And,
I can see the language changed all over around the world, even all over the world. Even like they have a meeting on December 11. North Atlantic Council and Gulf partner discuss greater cooperation to deal with the security challenge. And based at what Mr. Stoltenberg said, that the best way to tackle the security threat we face is to work together. The more we cooperate, the safe our shared neighborhood will be. Now I feel like Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they feel the heat, right? And I mean Turkey, they feel the heat. They feel that this terrorist organization, world organization, it's on their soil.
It is, and they are becoming apprehensive.
Yes.
I will share something with you that's very personal. I am a very devout Christian, and in the darkest time, I prayed for Syria.
Thank you.
And I prayed that somehow, that by some means that I could hardly imagine, that Syria would be rescued.
I hope so.
And the next day, I woke up, and the news hit that in Egypt, where President Morsi had been helping the rebels and sending jihadists into Syria, all of a sudden, 30 million Egyptians rose up and took to the streets in the greatest demonstration in all human history.
Yes.
And they ousted the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yes.
And now in the liberal media referred to this, they said, oh, this was a military coup. Well, the definition of a military coup is where a small group of military officers overthrows a government. That is not the case. When 30 million people take to the streets, that is not a military coup. That is the will of the people expressed by the people. And what was so amazing is that one of the first things that President el-Sisi did is he completely cut off all movement of people from Egypt into Syria.
Yes.
And he cracked down in every way that he could on the Syrian rebels and the support that they received from Egypt.
Yes.
And that was a great blessing, and it was a great turning point. And I believe that President el-Sisi is having some influence over Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, Saudi Arabia helped him financially, which surprised me because I think it was because they're getting apprehensive. They're becoming fearful that maybe this thing that they've unleashed is going to turn on them. And I think now that President el-Sisi is influencing them to draw back on their support for the rebels.
Correct.
And so you can see that happening with Saudi Arabia, perhaps.
Because he was affected too. He was affected in Sinai Desert when they killed the 26th Egyptian soldier in the desert.
Yes.
I don't know if you heard about that. And
I'm very familiar with it because I track things in Syria more closely than I do in the United States, but I also try to keep an eye on what's happening in Egypt.
Yes.
I'm very supportive of President el-Sisi because of what he's done, and I have corresponded with him, and I encouraged him to crack down on the Muslim Brotherhood and to utterly crush them. They everywhere that they work, they create violence and bloodshed.
Yes.
And they did it in Syria. They did it in Egypt. They're a very bloodthirsty organization, and they were the cause of the uprisings under President Assad's father also.
Yes, that's true.
Those were not
in 1982.
Yes.
In 1982, they did a big damage in Syria. That's correct.
Yes, and it was not simply people rising up for freedom. It was a very operation where they tried to rise up, and fortunately they were crushed out. But they continue to be a problem. They're a problem throughout the world, and I'm just pleased. I think it's a very good thing that President el-Sisi has seen that, and also I think now there are tensions between Egypt and Turkey because Prime Minister Erdogan has become almost an absolute dictator in Turkey.
That's correct.
And he, it seems like everybody who gets in his way, he throws them in jail.
It's not only that, Senator. They, the Kurdish in the north of Syria and the Turkish in the west of Turkey, they team together and they build it's like a human shield to protect the Syrian border from any terrorists coming in or out. It's like the Turkish, they team with the civilians. They team with the Kurdish group who wants to protect their border, and from both sides. They want to protect the Kurdish side and they want to protect the Turkish side. They don't want no terrorists coming in and out, because the Turkish border and the Syrian border, it was like the terrorists were going in and out as they pleased.
Yes. Well, and Turkey, the Turkish military used to be a very good military force until Prime Minister Erdogan
took over.
Threw most of the generals in prison.
Yes.
And now he controls everything.
Yes.
but on, I believe it was on March the 21st of this year, while everyone was distracted by what was happening in the Ukraine, they launched a 5-pronged attack across the border into Latakia province, and they attacked the Christian town of Kasab.
Yes.
And
Ma'lula.
they did it. Yes. And they did it using American-supplied anti-tank missiles that we had been told were supplied to carefully vetted moderate rebels. But all that they were is they were rebels who joined with the columns of al-Nusra terrorists, and those 5 columns attacked into Syria, and in the town of Kasab, they evacuate most of the people, but there were 80 who old people who were unable to get out for one reason or another. And when al-Nusra took over, they murdered all of them, and they beheaded 13.
Yes.
And then they defiled all of the churches, and these were the so-called moderates that we have been supporting, and they're
with money
the
and
lowest
weapons,
people.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Well, we were paying the Free Syrian Army until they fled and left all their weapons behind, and the Free Syrian Army just dissipated. It just evaporated into nothing in northern Syria, and they left behind the American weapons, and al-Nusra captured 60 of the anti-tank missiles that we had supplied.
Yes.
Now, I wrote a letter to President Obama because John McCain was encouraging us to give advanced anti-aircraft missiles to the rebels. Mm-hmm. And I wrote to President Obama, and I said, "This is madness." I said, those missiles will fall into the hands of Al-Qaeda, and they'll find their way to the airfields in the United States. And not far from where I live, we have Dulles Airport, which is a huge airport. I said, we're going to have Al-Qaeda with missiles downing civilian jetliners if we do this.
Exactly.
And John McCain had
insisting.
He told the press. He said it's a chance we should take.
Yes.
Well, those are the words of an absolute fool.
Exactly.
Why would we take such a chance? It's absurd.
Yes.
And then, ironically, it was not long after that the missiles we did supply were captured by Al-Qaeda, just as I predicted. And so I think at least the idea of supplying anti-aircraft missiles has become very unpopular because people understand that is a very unwise thing to do.
Yes.
So little by little, there is progress being made, and
thank God for that.
Yes, and I think that history will one day record that the heroism of the Syrian people in the face of all odds was a turning point for all of mankind, not just for Syria, not just for the Middle East, but for all of mankind throughout the world. That
exactly.
by holding the line, by being unrelenting in your determination to defend freedom.
That's correct.
And to defend the freedom of religion, to defend the freedom of women, and to protect civilization against barbarism.
That's correct.
That through the victory in Syria, that all of world history will have changed.
That's correct. Yeah.
This is something that I have realized. I have studied foreign affairs since I was just a young boy. It's been, almost 60 years that I have observed and watched foreign affairs and military affairs, and it's my sensing that the war in Syria is the center of gravity in a great worldwide movement, and either tyranny will spread throughout the world if Syria falls, or freedom will be preserved, freedom of religion, freedom for women, peace and prosperity. All good things will stem from the victory of Syria, and I believe that Syria will be victorious.
I hope so, and I have feeling that the cloud is moving away from that sky. Today, I was listening to one of the Egyptian reporters. His name Al-Abrashi, and he was discussing a very weird subject. It's like for the first time they have the freedom of speech to discuss such a thing. They were talking about, the university of the Islamic University, Al-Azhar. It's a very famous university in Egypt.
Yes.
They were talking about a book that they teach the students in high school. It says, you can kill whoever does not pray, and without going to your leader. So any of those kids can even eat a human body without even cooking the meat. This is, something, it's very, they've been teaching this to the students in that university. And they were having like this discussion is what kind of mentality and what kind of generation we are raising.
Yes, I think the miracle of the Egyptian uprising was one of the most hopeful signs that has occurred in my lifetime, and I am so pleased by watching the actions of President al-Sisi.
Yes.
And I hope that there are diplomatic exchanges between President Assad and President al-Sisi. Of course, Syria and Egypt have a long history of
Correct.
Cooperation and close relations that goes back just decades and decades, and I think that they share a great deal in terms of the threat from terrorism, the threat from the extremists, the type of people who would teach children that they can kill whoever they want, that they can cannibalize people. This is inhuman, and it
Sure.
needs to be crushed out. And there needs to be no mercy for people who would teach this sort of thing.
Exactly, especially the case of that child that he put the bomb in his suitcase and he go to school between his friends, and he leave the bomb within a few seconds. He run away because the adult is teaching him to go and drop the bomb there and leave. And he said when they have an interview with him, because they were very proud of what he did, he killed a lot of students his age, 5 years old and 6 and 7. He said on during the interview, my card is burned, which means that everybody know him now and he cannot go to any school anymore, so they're supposed to send somebody else. There is no word to explain this.
No, it's a level of barbarism that it is satanic.
True.
And you really cannot find any greater evil than you find with the people the Syrian rebels, those who are trying to undermine the Egyptian government. They're all the same people. They're people who have no heart. They have no soul. They're totally evil people.
Yes, that's correct. Senator Richard Black, I appreciate your time, and I thank you so much for sharing your thought with us. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm very pleased, and I will tell you, there is not a night that goes by that I don't pray for the people of Syria. I have a great love for the country. Someday I hope to come and to visit and perhaps to
Definitely.
pay my respects to the President and the First Lady. I would be happy to do that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. We will love to have you on our soil. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the honor to have our Senator, Mr. Richard Black, the Senator of Virginia, on our show. This is Inaam Tahhan, and before I leave, I would like to say, if you see something, say something. If you see something, say something. Till we see you again, have a wonderful time, and I would like to finish this show with the song that reminds me of my country, Syria. Enjoy.
لم ينتهي المشوار يا عروبة حتى تعود أرضنا السليبة
ففي الخيام طفلة المصيبة تنادي يا سورية الحبيبة
أعيد لي كرامتي أعيد لي حريتي أعيد لي هويتي
بالحرب والكفاح وشعلة الشراق